Good evening, my best student. Okay, I don't know, I don't remember your student name, but you're the only one who came here on time. But thank you so much. You're the best. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's let's start because today I would rather keep it concise and maybe I can um, end this in a short while, so I don't want to bore you too much. Okay, so yeah, all right. So let's continue on our journeys on Pandas data processing. Okay, so today we're gonna still be at the data processing parts, and then we are continuing at the number C7. So this one right here. Okay, so if you can find the files and we can get started. So I'll give you a couple minutes to find it. Okay, and again, we are at Panda data processing from 2 weeks ago, and we are actually from last time, right? Last time we do C6, today we're doing C7. Okay, so the last topic is going to be called the pivot and melt, okay? And this one I think might be, you can relate it back to the techniques that you use in Excel. I think the other instructor might, I believe that the topic is called pivot table that you can do in Excel. This is kind of similar, but you are doing this in Python, okay? And in order to do that, when you are making a pivot table, you are actually converting data between the long and wide format. Okay, so let me turn this one off. Okay, so you are converting data between long and wide format. And this one, I think if you know kind of like the overall picture of how the data differ, you can kind of decide, how do you want to kind of like transform your data. And then both of them has their merits. Okay. Okay. Why do I have this one? Okay. This one. Okay. So interesting. So okay. Also the pop-up's gone. Okay. All right. So let me show you. The best way is show you the example of the small data. So I'm gonna load my Panda as usual. Okay, so let me know if my my audio is not loud, it's not clear. Okay, I'm trying. So right now I kind of hide my floating window, so I will not be seeing if you chat. If you chat with me. So please kind of speak up. Okay. All right. So let me show you that this is the example of a wide format. Okay. All right. And again, this is something that you would maybe do, maybe you did something like this. It's called like a pivot form, okay? And again, let me just copy this one into Excel, okay? So that I can kind of show you how we transform things around in Excel, okay? So I'm gonna say y scores, okay, equal dot to Excel, okay? And then I would just do y score dot xlsx index equal to false because I don't need the index. Okay, there you go. And now I have another file called white score. So let me kind of show you how it works in here. Okay, so this is the data in wide format. Okay, and again, the wide format is very good in terms of seeing the summary of the data. Okay, but there is actually another type of data. It's called the long format. Okay, and you can kind of transform between these two as long as you don't do some aggregations. Okay, so right now the data is relatively simple because there is one-to-one mapping between the fields. Okay, you'll see that later. But right now the data is relatively simple, so you can transform back and forth between wide and long format. Okay, So if I want to do the long format, I want to do this. I want to do the student. So the student stay the same, right? But then I will have actually another column that kind of summarize, actually that kind of like the encompasses the three columns. So I would say that this one would be called subject, you know. So the subject is these three columns in here. So math, English, and science, okay? And then what I want to, and then I would have to have another columns that kind of store the data for the data in the middle, okay? So this one should be called, you know, score or grades, okay? So again, I should have another the column student, right? Another column that encompasses the rows in here, okay? And then another column that kind of store the values, okay? And how would I do this? So I would do this, a list, okay? And what would this be? So I would have math, okay? And the score for math for Alice is actually 85. So that would, let me just center everything, looks nicer, okay, like that. So that would be how you format just this particular data if you wanna kind of focus on this particular data, okay? And how would I put the data on this box into the other table, okay? I would do the same thing. I would do Alice, okay? I would do English, and I would do 90, okay? Again, I would do, and then if I want to put 88 into the other table, I would do, okay, I just do it backward. 88, right? Science, and then Alice, okay? So as you can see that the long format, okay? It's long, and you can see that it's going to be long because if I do Bob, okay, you can kind of see that I can do 3 Bobs, right? I can do math and science, right? And I can do 92, 88, and 85, okay? It's long, right? That's why it's called the long format, okay? And then again, Charlie, okay? And then math, English, science, okay? And I can do this too. If I can paste it here, and I can do some fancy pasting, okay? I can do transposed. There you go. Okay, so you can see the similarity, 8, 95, and 82, okay? And something with Diana. So 1, 2, 3, okay? Math, English, science, and then I would have to paste with transpose. So that's kind of my tricks. I want to transpose the data, okay? Okay, and as you can see that these two formats contain identical data, right? But then, you know, one is, you know, wider, that's called wide. You can see that if you have more than 3 subjects, it's gonna go, you know, to the right side. So you're gonna have more columns, so that's called wide, right? But again, if you know, for this type of data, no matter how many subjects there are, you're gonna have 3 columns. But if you have more subjects than this, you can imagine that the data is going to go down, more rows. It's going to be longer. So that's why it's called the long format, okay? And both of them are useful, okay? I'm not saying that, you know, this one's good, this one bad or anything, right? So it's just depending on the context of how you want to, I guess, process your data, okay? But let me show you how you would do this in Python, shall we? And then the command is called melt, okay? So it's a little bit involved, but if you kind of, you know, relates back to how I would do this, then it kind of makes sense, okay? So first I'm going to do wide scores, okay? And then dot melt, okay? Melt is like melting into the long format, okay? I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, right? And then I'm going to do some of the options in here. Okay, let me just load it up a little bit. Okay, so first thing is I want to do the ID variable, ID var, okay? So ID var would be students in this case. So notice that student remains kind of the same form because student, the column student doesn't get changed, right? We don't have, the name is the same, right? It's called the ID variable or index variable. Okay, so the name of the column that stays the same, this is called the ID var. So I'm going to say that my ID var is student, okay? And notice that I keep it in a list. So it's possible to do it without the list, okay? But then, you know, there are many situations where you actually want the index column, okay, the column that doesn't change the name, to have multiple columns. It might be possible. For example, if you have something like name, so if the student have last name, for example, let me just, why can't I insert another table? Okay, so let's say if I have like email, right, and then this one would be Alice, you know, a.com, you know, like A, B, C, D, right? If you want to melt, you know, just the data in here, right? You don't want to touch this one. So in here, the long format would also become emails in here, and then I would do like, you know, A, you know, B, C, and D, something like that. So in that case, I would say that my ID variable is actually 2 columns. Okay, so the columns that you don't want to change, the name basically. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete email in here, just to make sure I don't confuse you too much, okay? The next thing is actually what's called the var names, okay? Okay, so the var name is whatever the column that you're gonna kind of transpose, or the name of this one. So whatever the columns, that's not the ID variable. You have the remaining columns, right? So what you want to call the column that encompasses all of this information. So math, English, and science, I would say that column is called subject, okay? So I would say subject. And again, this one, you have to do it without the list, because once you choose the ID variable, right, the rest of the column name has to go into one column called subject. So then you kind of have to, that's going to be only one that you can melt, basically, okay? And then the other one is, how would you want to call the name of the value column? Meaning that, you know, this thing is going to go into this part, right? But then how would you want to call the name of this? You know, you have, you know, freedom, flexibility to call it. So I'm going to call it score. Okay, you can call it anything you want, okay? So I'm going to say score, okay? And this one, again, you can name it anything you want. And then I'm going to, I guess, just going to run it, okay? And there you go, okay? And you can notice the similarity between whatever I have in here, okay, and whatever shown in here, okay? And you know, when you see it for the first time, it kind of takes some time to wrap your head around it. But actually, the thing that's more common, I guess, from your experience, is actually the other way around. So going from this type of format into the wide format, where it's almost like a summary of your data, okay? And that's essentially what you're doing with the pivot table in Excel too, okay? Okay, so let me actually convert it back into the wide format, shall we? Okay, because, you know, I would just tell you right now that, you know, if you, for example, if you start working on the project, the data that you download from Kaggle, it would probably is going to be in a long format like this. You know, in terms of raw data, usually long format is easier to store and generate. And then, but then once you do the processing, the wide format is easier to analyze. Okay, so you typically go from long to wide, not the other way around. Okay, okay. So this is what we're gonna do. So we're gonna convert from back to wide format. Okay, and the command is, okay. So I need to put this one into the another data frame called long score. Okay. And then I'm going to display it, or I'm just going to just type it in like that. Okay, so I got the variable, okay? And if I want to convert it back into the wide format, I would just do long scores, okay, dot pivot. And notice the name, right? It's like making a pivot table. But actually, it's not really the pivot table yet, because pivot table, it's going to involve the aggregations. Okay, today, I mean, at this point, we don't do aggregation yet, okay? So let's do this. So in order to go from long to wide, again, we have to tell Panda which one is the column that we want to retain as index. Okay, so think about this. We have this one, right? Again, I want to make sure that the column student stays the same. Okay, I don't want to change it. Okay, so I would say the index column, right? But this one is called the, oh, actually it's called index, so this one is nicer. You know, I never really remember the name of the arguments, but it's usually just this type of just thinking around it. Okay, so the index column is called student. Again, it's a list because you can have multiple indices index columns. Okay, or they say identifier. Okay. And then what would be the column that you want to make the into like a horizontal, right? So var names equal, okay? Again, that column is going to be this one, right? But you want to get rid of this subject column, but then make all the things in here into the horizontal format like this, okay? So that's the job for the second arguments, var names. Okay, so it's going to be called subject. Okay, so it's going to kind of like pivot the subject column into like a horizontal sequence of columns according to its values. Okay, and then what would be the value name? So what would be the content? So where would the content come from? Okay. So the content would come from the column called the score. Okay, so I want to put the content here. Okay. So that would be value name without the s. Okay, score. Okay, and that's exactly what I will show you. What's this one? I think there would be no s in here. Wait, var name. I make some mistakes in here. Actually, I look in the wrong thing. Sorry, it's gonna be called columns. Okay, sorry guys, columns. Okay, column, sorry. I look into the wrong one, okay. And again, actually, I was telling you about the wrong thing. Actually, columns can become, you can use list. Actually, the Panda allows you to use list because you can have multiple, I guess, levels of columns. Okay, but the value is to be called the score. Okay, sorry. I was looking at the wrong blocks in my notes. Okay, but again, the order is kind of the same, right? You're going to do the index, and what would be the columns that you want to transform, right? And then the value that you're going to put in the middle part. Okay, and there you go. Okay. And Panda is actually, keep the name, the subjects in here. Actually, that's kind of interesting. I didn't notice it. But then, in Excel, you would just have, like math, English, and science, and the subject is kind of gone, right? If you want to melt it, right? But then in Panda, still keep the subjects in here. So that's it's kind of nice. Okay, so the Y format is useful and it's quite easy to see because if you compare these two type of data, you can kind of see that this one is actually easier to understand, right? I have names and then everything's kind of easier. So Y format is typically shown to you from data processing, but then what is the benefit of keeping the data like this? And I have two use cases for you. Okay, the first thing is if you keep things as the long format. Did I say Y? I'm not sure. So if you keep things as a long format, it's actually easier to do aggregation in Panda. For example, group by. that we all love to confuse, right? So group by is very easy in Panda if you have long format. If you have wide format, it's kind of not possible to do. So say if I want to calculate like the average score of students, okay, I can do this, right? Long score, right? Dot group by, right? I want to group the score by subject, okay? And then I want the score, and then I want the mean of that, okay? Okay, I think it's taking long because it's import this seaborn in here, not because of the group by, okay? So, okay, and that's how I would do it, okay? So again, if you want to do the same thing with the Y format, okay? Again, this one, I know the syntax is pretty crazy, right? But if you kind of relate back into the group by topics, this is how we would do it. It's similar to how you do like the wine consumption in each of the continent, something like that, right? If you want to do it with the Y format, it would be like this. You have to do wide score, right? And you have to kind of do it kind of like manually, right? So again, I have to do Y score English, right? Plus Y score, almost like an Excel formula, I would say, right? Okay, math, right? And then plus Y score science, okay? And then I would have to do dot mean, okay? Actually, I don't want to do that. I want to keep it like this, okay? And then, I can just divide it by 3, right? Okay, and that would be, kind of like a simple ways to do, or I can even do this, right? I can say that Y score, okay, mean, right? Create a new column, basically. And then if I do Y score, okay. And so if you want to do it with the Y format, essentially you are creating a new column, basically. So this is how you kind of like, write Excel formula, right? If you were to do it in spreadsheet, right? Although I would argue that this one, the syntax, it's less convoluted, right? But then if you're doing some pretty crazy group, processing, using group by is actually quite compact, I would say. Okay, so there are times when actually using group by is very convenient and very compact, rather than just writing it out like this. Okay, maybe I would say that it's less code required. Okay. Right, so that's one situation where you might be interested in the long format, okay? Another thing is that if you use the visualization library, actually keeping the data in long formats allow you to do some pretty cool plot pretty easily. For example, I can do this. So again, we'll go through this one later because today we'll visit the visualization library in Python 2. But let me show you this one. I can say sns.boxplot, okay? And I would say data is going to be equal to my long score, okay? And then my x is going to be equal to subject. And then my y is going to be equal to score, okay? And there you go. See? Something like this. Pretty cool, huh? Actually, if you want to do this in using the Y format, it's a little bit more complicated. But if you keep your data in long format, plotting something like this where you kind of separate things into different subjects, it's very easy. Okay. Although, I mean, if you haven't worked with the Python library, visualization library that much, you might not kind of like appreciate this fact. But for me, I've been working with this for a while, and whenever I'm plotting, it turns out that I find myself convert my data actually back into the long format before I plot, because it's so easy to do it with the kind of the Python library ecosystems. Okay, so that's kind of like the two contexts that I found useful to keep things in long format. But essentially, what you're gonna end up having is, your raw data is always gonna be the long format, because that's how database stores data. When you do the form submissions, it's always gonna be the long format first, almost always. Okay. All right, so let's have some more practice with the long and wide format. Okay. So here it's the wide format. Okay. Let me just run this one. Right. This is wide because we have kind of like a summary. We have the index with its region, right? And then we have the separate by month, right? And then there's like a data in the middle. Okay. So I'm gonna go back into the long format. So that's gonna be melt, right? So cells. Wide, okay, dot melt. Okay, again, I would do first which of the column I want to retain, okay, and that's going to be region, usually the one on the left, right? But you have a choice because you have multiple index columns, okay, so possible. So I'm going to say where is it, ID vars, okay, equal, and then in the list I'm going to say region. Okay, so region stay the same in terms of the name, okay? But then the one that's gonna change, it's actually this one right here. The rest of the column, you have to find a name that kind of encompasses this data. I think month would be the most appropriate. So I'm going to write var name equal. Again, this one has to be singular because all of this are going to appear under one column called month, okay? And then the value, what is the name of the value column? And then you feel free to come up with anything, but I think sales would be, because this is a sales data. So yeah, so why don't we just do sales? And there you go. I got the long format. Okay, pretty easy, huh? Okay, and then I'm gonna put this one in sales long, okay, like that, and then I'm going to display it just to make sure, okay, there you go. And then I'm going to convert the long format back into the wide format one more time. That's going to be called pivot, okay, so cells long dot pivot. And then again, I would have to say, what is the columns that I don't want to change? That will be my index column. That would be region, the same. So index equal region. Again, in a list, because you can have multiple index columns, okay? But then what would be the column that you want to spread it out horizontally, okay? And that would be my month. I want month to go horizontal in sequence, okay? And then, so that would be columns, okay? Equal. And again, this one I'm putting in a list because Panda actually allows you to specify, to spread out multiple columns. It's actually just going to be in multiple levels. So that's pretty advanced thing that Panda allows you to do pretty easily. Okay, but now I'm just keep it simple. I'm just going to say month. Okay. Again, month come from here. So here it's the one that I want to spread it out. Okay. And then what is the value that's going to appear in the middle parts? Okay, so value columns is going to be equal to cell. Okay, and hopefully that will give me the long parts. Oops, I think value name. I keep okay, value. So I keep looking at the different code blocks. Okay, because I don't remember the name of the arguments exactly, but I always gonna base on these three concepts always. What is my index? What are the columns that I need to transform? And then what is the value? I think that's kind of my approach to this melt and pivot. Okay. Okay, so let's continue, shall we? So we have I have a couple examples for you to see. Okay, so this one, rating data, it's a longer, larger data. Again, let's check it out first. This one is actually is going to be long, starting with the long format, okay? And then I want you to convert into the wide format, okay? All right, so let's do it, okay? Again, if you go from long to wide, it's called pivot, okay? So the name of the data frame is called rating long, okay? Dot pivot, okay? Again, three things. What are the columns that I want to retain? Okay, I think customer would be the one that I want to retain. So that would be index called customer. Okay. Again, in a list, you can have multiple index columns. Okay. And what would be the columns that you want to spread out? Okay. So product, something that I want to spread out horizontally. Okay. So columns going to be equal to, in a list, again, you can do multiple columns, and then that will be product, okay? And then what would be the value that you put in the middle parts? Okay, the value is going to be equal to rating. Again, this one has to be singular, not in a list, because you only have one type of values, okay? And hopefully that will give me the wide format. Okay, again, you know, much easier to look at, right? I mean, here, right, rather than the long format. Okay, so I'll put it back here. All right, so let me show you how you would actually convert it back into the long format from this part. Okay, so let's try one more time, shall we? And you're gonna see there's a little bit of complication you have to take care of. Okay, because this one I intentionally want to show you this one. Okay, so let's just do our first, the thing that we have learned so far. So I should put this into another a variable called ratings wide, like that. Okay, and then run it one more time. Okay, so I'm gonna convert this rating wide into the long format again. So rating wide dot melt, right, with S. Okay, and let's do the same thing. Like, what is the column that I want to retain? That would be customers, right? So okay, I think I should display rating wide. Okay. 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 Let me run it one more time because I want to show you this. Okay. Okay, so I want to convert this back into the long format, okay? Okay, and I don't need this one anymore because it's too long. Okay. Okay. All right, so I can continue. Okay. So the columns that I want is actually called customer, right? So I would say that ID var, not this one, ID var equal customer. Okay, and again, this one in a list, the best way to make sure that I'm aware of the multiplicity. Okay, so the var names, okay, it's going to be equal to product, right? Again, I want to find the name of the columns that encompasses this thing right here. So I think products would be appropriate, right? Okay. And then what would be the name of whatever the value that are in the middle parts? That's going to be called rating, okay? I think that's called value name, okay? So see, the name of the arguments never ring a bell for me. I never remember it specifically, but I just kind of remember this methods of chain of thoughts, okay? So I'm going to say rating. Okay, so again, I'm flexible. I'm free to come up with the name of this column. Doesn't have to be rating. Okay. If I run it, I think it's going to give me error. Okay, there you go. That's the errors in here. Okay, and the error says that it cannot. Okay, so check this one out. This part. Okay, I'm saying that I want the ID variable to be customer, right? Which is here. But then the Panda doesn't tells me that actually it cannot find the columns named customer. This is kind of weird, right? We just saw that there is the column name customer. So why does it say that it cannot find the columns named customer? Okay. And the reason is that actually Pandas makes this distinguish between two types of kind of like columns. One would be the index column, and the other one is just the regular columns. Okay, so normally if you start with the wide format, okay, so let me just go back here. Okay, if I start with the wide format, notice that my index, the things that I don't want to change, right? It's actually a part of the regular columns. And Panda gave me another index column, which I don't care. So I don't care about 0, 1, 2, 3, right? I care about region. That's the one I want, right? And this one, you'll feel the things that we did works perfectly, right? But then once I came across this type of transformation, so I transformed from long to wide. Notice that actually my data frame has like the column named customer now become a special column. This is the index column. Okay, so the regular columns for Panda to look at is actually just product A, B, and C. There is no regular columns called customer anymore. Okay, so that's why this melting does not work. Okay, so in order for you to melt, in a way that we did before, you kind of need to convert this columns in here, which is the index column, in terms of like containing the row in this indices, okay, back into like a normal columns first, okay, and this process I did it all the time, but I just have to remember that okay, now I need my kind of like a customer columns to become like a normal column so that Panda can find it. Okay, so Panda doesn't treat the index column as like the regular data per se. So that's why it's giving me this error. Okay, so what I need to do is actually I'm gonna comment this out for now. Okay, but what I have to do first is actually I need to do this. So rating. Okay, I'm gonna take display out. So this is my regular data after I convert into the wide format. Okay, notice that my customer column looks a little bit different, right? So this is not the regular columns yet. I need to convert my index column into the regular column. So this one is going to be called reset index. So this method, I use it all the time. Okay, whenever there's some transformation or there's some process in Panda, it might be possible that some of your data or columns going to be turned into like a special column like this called the index column. Okay, so if I want to make it back into the normal column, I do reset index. Okay, so if I run this, you can see now my data frame looks kind of normal, right? I have another column called customer. Okay, but it's almost normal. Like if I only look at this part, then it's almost like the same, right? Which I mean, typically this is fine, but I really don't want this column in here that's named product. It's kind of extra. Like it's not really meaningful or anything. Like there's no product 0, 1, 2. So what I can do is actually I can do keep equal to false. Okay. Oh, sorry, not keep, drop equal to false. Okay. Actually, I have to say true, right? Sorry. Oh, okay. So actually, no, I have to drop false. Okay. 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 So actually, okay, I was confused for a bit, but okay, I got it now. So yeah, so it's true that my data frame actually contain all the data that I want, But this part, this one is something a little bit extra. So I have to remember if I don't want this, I can drop it. So drop, okay? There's another method called drop, right? And then I can say columns equal. Okay, I just say the name like product. Nope. Not found in access. Oh, okay. So I guess, oh, okay, okay. I see. I see what it means. So sorry, I cannot drop because I think this column is an index column. Okay. So I think this is fine for now. I think you don't have to care. I think if you want to change this product into something else, you have to set the name. I think that's the index name. Let me try that. I think index, okay, rating wide equal, okay. And then I'm going to say display rating wide, okay. So right now it's the same, right? But then I can say rating dot y dot index dot name equal like something else like index or something. Yeah. Oh, now it's becomes like this. So yeah, okay. I don't want to be testing this one in front of you. So I'll go research it myself how to do this. But usually this is fine because all you need is actually this part right here. Okay. And okay, so once I got this one, I can actually run this this code right now. So this one will work because the customer is here as the regular columns, and then the rest you can do it too. Okay, so let's try it. Nope. Customer. Rating Y, reset index. Okay, let me drop, okay. False. Interesting. I didn't expect this. Okay. It doesn't find customer, but I already have customer. Interesting. So this one I don't expect it. So let me tackle this one a little bit. If I cannot, then I'll do it during the break, okay, and come back to it, okay. I don't want to bore you too much when I try to figure out the bugs, okay. But this is very interesting. I cannot do this one. Not present in the data frames. Okay. Okay, if I were to do rating wide dot columns, dot columns, okay. See, it has, oh, okay, so it's then index. Oh, yeah, it should be fine, right? Value. Yeah, it's already have customers in here. Misspell? Nope. Okay, so I don't understand because I already have the columns in here. So, okay, you know what? I'll look it up or test things on my own during the breaks, and I'll come back. I'll revisit this thing one more time. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So, so far so good, right? We have using the melt and pivot for a bit, right? But actually, there is a little bit of complication, or actually the real data is more complicated than this. Okay, so let me show you this. Okay, again, I want to show you that if I have this thing, right, and I want to, maybe I can do it in Excel first. So sales long dot to Excel. Okay, and then I will sales long SLXS. Okay, and then index equal to false. I don't need index in here. Sales long. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I want to. So again, this one is my data is actually in the long format, right? I want to make it into the wide format. Okay. So if I want to do this, I think it might be nice if I have the product. Okay, so usually I just do the left column as the index. So I'm going to say product. Okay, right. But then I have three things in here. Okay, I have apples and banana. Okay. Okay, right. Apples and oops, sorry, apple and banana. Okay, but then I want to kind of pivot this thing, right? So this one has to go horizontal. Okay, so I have Alice and Bob. So this one will be Alice and Bob. Okay, and my cells is actually going to be something that happens in here. Okay, so let's try to find the cells with Alice and Apple. Okay, as you can see here that there are actually two rows in here. One is here, and another one is here. Okay, so I only have one cell to put the values in here. So I have one candidate, which is 100, and I have 120. Like, how would I do it, right? You know, if like I cannot put 100 and 120 together. If I don't specify it, how would I process these two values? Actually, there are three values in here, right? There are threes in here. Okay, so there are three values in here: Apple and Alice. Okay, so how would I want to do? You need to aggregate these three values. There's no way you can put three things in one box. Okay, so you either have to do, maybe you can do summation. So that would be 330. Okay, so you sum these three values together in order to get this one things in here. And this one is called aggregations. And this is actually called pivot table. Okay, so when you do pivot table like you do it in Excel, you are allowed to perform some aggregations whenever you have the same multiple value that you need to put into one cell like this. Okay, so let's do another one just to show you. Okay, so I'm gonna move this thing out and then just gonna move it back. Okay, what about Bob and Apple? Okay, do I have Bob and Apple? I don't have Bobs and Apple. I only have bananas and Bob, right? So again, let's do banana and Bob. So we have three things in here. Okay, and we have three values in here. So how would you want to do this, right? We are putting it in here. So you can do again summation. Okay, so that would be 380, right? 380, 480, and 530. I guess something like that. Okay, and this would be blank or empty. Okay, something like that. Okay, so let's see if we can do the same thing, but in Python. Okay, so that would be called the pivot table. Okay. And in here, I was showing you that if you actually try to do the pivot, okay, the similar to how we did it here. Okay, so this is trust me, when we do index as the products, right? I want to expand my salesperson horizontally, and I want to put the cells in here. Then you are going to have some error. Okay, and if you read the error, you can say that there are duplicate entry. Okay. And essentially what it means is that there are multiple values that it needs to put in here, and it cannot do that without the pivot, just the pivot transformation. You have to do pivot table. Okay, so I'm going to comment this one and remove the error. Okay, so we'll use the pivot table instead. Okay. So when you do the pivot table, the command will be called pivot table. So cells long, okay, dot pivot. Oh, where's my cells long? In here, okay. Cells, long, like this, okay. Pivot table. See, it's a note the difference, right, between if you would do just a pivot and or pivot table. It's different, okay. So pivot table is going to require more specification, right? But the first three things is going to be the same, okay? So what is your index column that you don't want to change, okay? So index equal product. Okay. And what would be the column that I want to spread horizontally? Okay, columns would be equal to salesperson. Okay. Alice and Bob, I want to spread it out horizontally. Okay. And what would be the value that I want to put in the middle parts? So that would be values equal to sales. Okay. If it's just like this, then I don't think it works. Okay, let me try to run it. Okay, because this is the same information as the one where I show you there's some errors in here. Okay, so let me try this one. Actually, it works. You know why? I think it just defaults into the mean. Okay, but you know I don't want to do that, right? This one is wrong. Okay, so it's actually I guess smart enough to just assuming I want the mean value. Okay, but I don't want the mean value. I want the aggregation function to be equal to sum. And there you go. Okay, and I got similar things to what I have over here, right? This one and, oh, not this one, but here you go. Pretty cool, right? Again, you know, I think pivot table, it's pretty nice in Python because you, if you recall, I don't know if you recall, but if you learn with Ajahn Ner, right? You have to click a lot in order to do the pivot table, but now you just do like one command, it works. Okay, so it's good for automation, basically. You can automate the creation of the pivot table in Python. All right, okay. So let me just try something else. There are many ways you can do aggregation. So that one's going to be quite neat. So sales, okay. Wait. Okay, so sales long. Okay, that's what I want, right? Dot pivot table. Okay, again, I want to do what would be my index column that I want to touch. Index equal product. Okay, that one I want to keep, right? The one that I want to spread it out, columns equal salesperson. Person, okay. And values, what would be my column, the value that's put into the middle parts, okay? That would be sales. Again, if I don't do anything, I just show you that it defaults to the mean aggregation function, but I can specify it explicitly. Ag_func equal mean. And there you go, I got the mean. Hopefully that's right, okay? Okay, and you know, there is no reason for you not to try other things. For example, max, how about max? Okay, how about mean? Okay, how about count? I can even count too, like how many duplicates I have. You know, it's pretty cool. First, the first thing, the last thing. There are many things you can do, okay, in terms of aggregation. And mind you, you can even create your own aggregation function, which is the create your own function too. Okay, so all right, so let's try something that, you know, substantial in terms of the data. Okay, so this one is going to be adult. Okay, so let me load this one. Again, you need to have your data in this folder. Okay, you have to have the data folder along with you too. Okay, so wow, that's a lot. Okay, I think we went through this data last time or something. I'm not sure, maybe not. Okay, but never mind. Okay, so maybe I can use the pivot table. Again, this data is actually in the long format per se. Okay, I want to kind of pivot into the wide format for summarize or for, you know, analysis, right? So let's do it. Okay, I do adult.info, so you can see that there are 3,000 rows. All of them have non-zero value, so that's good. Non-null value, so that's good. Okay, and the columns are here. Okay, so maybe I can do some pivot table like, you know, you would do in Excel. But this one actually required more, I guess, more mental power because you don't see things right away. You have to kind of visualize it in your head first. So it's definitely harder to create in terms of like the code, right? But you know, once you did this, you can automate yourself. very easily. All right, so I want to create a pivot table to analyze age by occupation and work class. Okay, so this one, for example, I can do adults dot pivot table. Okay. Again, what do I want to keep? Okay. I want to keep or show the index, which is my education. Okay, so wait, I say occupation. I think this one I make mistakes. I should say education because in my solution I want to do education, not occupation. Okay. Okay, so my education would be kind of like the going in a column. Okay, but what I want to spread out is actually gender. Okay, so actually my instruction is wrong. Okay, I want to do gender. So my columns, the things that I want to spread out, is going to be equal to gender. Okay, so education and gender in here. Okay, and I want the value. So the things that I want to put inside to be equal to hours per week. Okay, hours per week. Okay, and I want to see the mean. So acc_func equal to mean. And you can see how cool this is. An error. Thank you. Okay, hours per week is wrong because I forgot the S in here. There you go. Pretty cool, huh? So you can see that, okay, so gender, male and female. Okay, so education. So which one has the maximum hour per week? Just for looking at it just quickly, I would say I see the number 46 in here. So yeah, so first to fourth grade female has the average, the highest average of hour per week, something like that. Okay, and again, let me kind of show you around. If I keep changing things, like how would it look like? I think that would be the best for educations. Okay, so I can increase. I can add more index columns, and you can see what happens. So let me see education, and maybe I can say race in here. Okay, and now you can see that it's almost like a pivot table, right? It's going to separate things by kind of like a two layer, right? So you'd have education first, and the race is kind of the second part, right? And then there are separate by kind of like sorted by categorized by gender. Okay, it looks a bit more complicated now, but you know it's not bad, right? What happened if I were to do multiple columns in here, right? But to make it less daunting, I would just delete my race one more time. But I want to do gender and race, maybe. What would happen here? Okay, and as you can see that now, it's going to finding all the race as a female and all the race as a male, and then you know, categorized by the education, and these are all the mean of the work hours. Okay, so you can see how powerful this is, right? I mean, to be fair, you can do something like this in Excel, pivot table too. And I would argue that if you want to do the exploratory data in Excel, it would be more, I guess, more intuitive, right? But then once you know what you want, if you know what you want and you want to generate it quickly or automations, I think this part is so concise, it's so fast to do. I think that's my my suggestions is that, you know, use the tools according to, you know, its benefits, right? So I think pivot table in Excel is pretty good too for just trying around. This one is less intuitive, but much faster to do and with automations. Okay, so let's try something else. I want to create the pivot table to analyze age by occupation and work class. Okay, so this one is what this is the correct instruction. Okay, so I'm going to do adults, right, dot pivot table. Okay, and again, I want to do first, what is my index? Okay, what do I want to keep or show in this case? I want to do occupation. Okay, and then what are the columns that I want to spread it horizontally? Okay, columns equal work class. Okay, and what are the values that I want to put in the middle? Okay, so values equal age. Okay, And how do I want to aggregate this? Because sometimes I do have duplication, right? So I want to do mean. And there you go. Pretty cool, huh? So let's try to find the answer to this one. So what would be the highest age, okay, for in terms of occupations and work class? If I kind of go through this quickly, I would say, you know, there are 55s in here. So transport, moving, and federal government, something like that. Okay, so that's how you would kind of analyze the results from this. Okay. And I think I want to show you this one. It might not work, but I just want to try. Okay, so what happened? Can I just input multiple aggregation function? Does it allows me to do? Actually, it does. Pretty cool, right? So right now, if I actually using the aggregation function in a list, actually it will do the mean first and the max later with all the columns in terms of the work class. It's pretty cool. Okay, I know that it can do this, but I don't remember the syntax, so I just want to try it real quick, and it works too. So pretty cool. Okay. All right, so yeah, so let's take some 5-minute breaks. We'll rejoin again in about like how about 10 minutes break? So 5:40. Okay, let me take some time to figure out the one error I had. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. Thank you.